silent prism. The rain fell in steady sheets, thick and cold, smearing the city beneath like a watercolor left to bleed. Neon lights flickered behind fractured glass, casting fractured colors onto streets slick with ash and oil. The air was heavy, laden with the scent of rust, smoke, and forgotten secrets. Somewhere distant, the last hum of a dying generator echoed like a fading heartbeat. Mara stood on the edge of the observation tower, a silhouette carved against the murky sky. Her fingers curled tightly around a prism-shaped shard, its facets catching and bending the meager light, sending fractured rainbows across the peeling concrete. The prism was an artifact from the old world, something no one truly understood anymore, but everyone feared and coveted. Her eyes scanned the horizon, tracing broken lines of the cityscape, skeletal structures half swallowed by creeping vines and ash, streets choked with debris, windows shattered like broken memories. The city was a ghost, wearing the mask of its former self, a shell haunted by echoes of data and faded promises. The prism pulsed faintly in her palm, a dim azure glow beneath its crystalline surface. It was alive, in a way, a fragment of code trapped in glass and light. It hummed with a resonance that sent a chill through Mara's bones. She knew that within it lay fragments of the old digital world, messages, maps, and memories locked in a prison of refracted light. Behind her, the city's fractured network flickered, ghost signals struggling to reassemble, a digital whisper lost in the gray noise. Mara had seen enough to know that others were searching for the prism, those who would use its power to tip the fragile balance of power in this fractured world. A soft crackle from her comlink broke the silence, a warped voice barely audible through static. "They're coming. Stay hidden. The prism is not what it seems." The message ended abruptly, swallowed by white noise. Mara's heart thudded, the weight of the warning pressing down on her. She slipped the prism into a hidden compartment beneath her worn jacket, feeling the cold bite of metal and glass. The city was no longer a place of refuge. It was a trap closing in from all sides. She moved away from the tower's edge, her boots echoing softly on the cracked concrete stairs. Each step was careful, deliberate. Outside, the rain mixed with ash, turning the world into a blurred canvas of gray and neon, a fading memory of what once was. Her mind flickered back to the prism's purpose. It was a key, a weapon, a relic, perhaps all at once. It could unlock old systems buried beneath layers of time, or shatter fragile alliances built on forgotten data. Its true power was hidden, wrapped in layers of code and myth. Mara thought of the Enclave leaders who hunted remnants of technology like predators, and the data cults who worshipped fragments of code as divine scripture. Between them, the world was a cage, one where knowledge was both treasure and curse. As the rain intensified, Mara's thoughts sharpened. She would have to decide soon: keep the prism hidden and risk losing it, or use it and risk becoming a target. The city below whispered secrets through cracked speakers and broken drones, a language only the desperate could understand. Somewhere in the shadows, hunters stirred, their eyes glinting with hunger. Mara adjusted her jacket, feeling the prism's faint pulse against her ribs, a silent promise, a burden, a threat. The rain blurred her vision as she stepped into the night, the fractured neon bleeding into the wet concrete beneath her boots. Above, the storm gathered strength, the sky a canvas of darkening clouds and distant thunder. The city waited, fractured, fragile, and merciless. Mara vanished into the labyrinth. The labyrinth, swallow, Mara, whole. Corridors of rust, wet concrete, and shadow twisted beneath the city like veins. Each footstep echoed, sharp and hollow, a reminder of the solitude she wore like armor. The prism pulsed faintly beneath her jacket, a heartbeat out of sync with the dying world above. Rain seeped through cracks in the ceiling, pooling into murky puddles that reflected shattered neon signs from the streets above. Light flickered weakly, fractured and broken, casting long shadows that twisted into shapes of forgotten fears. The city was a graveyard of whispers, where silence had become the loudest voice. Mara's breath rose in quick clouds, mingling with ash that drifted lazily through the stale air. The scent of rust and burnt circuits clung to everything, a reminder of a world collapsing piece by piece. Her eyes, sharp and scanning, sought paths hidden in the decay. Each step was calculated. Misstep meant death or capture. Above ground, the enclave was a patchwork of fragile alliances and old grudges, where power was measured in scraps of tech and stolen memories. Mara was no stranger to the shadows they hid in. She had learned to move like smoke, unseen and untraceable. But tonight the weight of the prism pressed heavier on her chest. It was a relic, yes, but also a key, one that could unlock doors better left sealed. Her comlink crackled, the distorted voice warning still fresh in her mind. The words reverberated through her thoughts like a warning bell. The hunters were close. The prism glowed faintly, responding to the proximity of old technology, buried deep beneath the city. Mara's destination was a forgotten terminal, hidden in the bowels of the enclave, a relic of the pre-blackout world. The place was a tomb for lost data, a silent witness to a civilization erased. She descended narrow stairs carved from cracked concrete, the air growing colder and thicker with dust. Her boots splashed in stagnant water, rippling reflections of flickering holo ads that had long ceased to function. The terminal's entrance was marked only by a rusted panel hanging loosely from its hinges, the faded symbol of an extinct corporation barely visible. Mara pressed her palm against the cold metal, feeling the faint hum of power beneath. She extracted the prism, its facets catching what little light remained, sending fractured rainbows across the walls. The shard's glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, a silent song of lost data and fractured truths. Her fingers danced over the terminal's cracked interface, igniting circuits that sparked with brittle life. Images flickered on the screen, ghosts of the past, fractured and incomplete. Faces, places, words, memories locked in digital cages, slipping through time like sand. A voice whispered through the static, fragmented and distorted. A child's laughter, a lover's plea, Mara's fingers moved cautiously over the cracked terminal, each press sending ripples through the fractured data beneath the screen's brittle surface. The prism in her palm pulsed steadily, its light cutting through the darkness like a beacon in the void. Ghostly images flickered to life, fragments of memories, distorted and incomplete, like shards of a shattered mirror. Faces appeared, half-formed and distant. Eyes that once held dreams now stared blankly, trapped in forgotten time. Among the flickering images, one name repeated: Caleb, a ghost among ghosts, lost in the chaos of the great blackout. His memories were scattered, stolen, traded like contraband among the enclaves. Mara traced his fragmented story, desperate to piece together the puzzle buried in digital dust. The city above moaned with cold wind and distant sirens, but here, beneath the ruins, time seemed to slow. The terminal revealed more, glimpses of a world before, the city alive with neon dreams, promises and betrayals woven into its glowing veins. The data hinted at something darker, hidden beneath layers of corporate lies and forgotten histories. Mara's mind raced. The corporation that once ruled here had silenced more than just data. They'd buried secrets meant to stay lost. A file pulsed on the screen, its glow urgent and insistent. The prism's light sharpened, pulling her deeper into the maze of forgotten code. The choice pressed heavy on Mara's chest: expose the truth and risk the wrath of those who still hunted her, or bury the past and preserve the fragile thread of survival she clung to. Behind her, the footsteps grew louder, sharper, hunters closing in like predators sensing weakness. The terminal's glow flickered, a warning, a countdown to silence. Time was slipping through her fingers like ash. Mara's breath hitched, but her resolve hardened. With one last glance at the fading images, she reached out and began to transfer the data from the terminal to the prism. The shards of a lost world, fragments of Caleb's story, all contained in that fragile crystal. The shadows crept closer, but Mara held on to the light. The weight of the prism was both a burden and a beacon, a promise that even in the endless night, some truths refuse to die. As the terminal powered down, the city outside waited in cold silence. Rain washed away the last traces of day, leaving only the flicker of neon and the distant pulse of forgotten memories. Mara stepped back into the dark, her path uncertain, but her purpose clear. The past was no longer silent. It had found a voice, and it whispered her name. Mara slipped through the narrow passages beneath the city, the prism glowing faintly in her grasp. The weight of stolen memories pressed heavy, a fragile promise amid ruins. Above, the enclave's flickering neon blurred through cracked glass, ghosts of a world that once was. She navigated the labyrinth with practiced ease, senses sharp against the silence. The prism's pulse quickened as she neared an old data vault, hidden deep beneath layers of concrete and forgotten security. This was where the past waited, locked away beneath a tomb of dust and rust. Rain pattered faintly on broken rooftops far above, a rhythm that echoed the fractured beats of a broken city. Mara's breath was steady, but tension curled in her gut. Every shadow could conceal a hunter. Every step carried the weight of choice. At the vault's entrance she paused. The prism hummed, resonating with the dormant systems behind the sealed door. Memories long buried stirred, flickering with uncertain life. The enclave's secrets waited, waiting for light. She touched the cold metal, fingers trembling slightly. The door groaned open, revealing darkness thick with silence. Mara stepped inside, the glow of the prism carving paths through dust and shadow. Inside, rows of data cores loomed like ancient monoliths, their surfaces cracked and faded. The air tasted of rust and lost time. Here, fragments of a shattered world slept, waiting to be awakened or forgotten forever. The prism's light pulsed urgently, guiding Mara toward a terminal buried beneath cables and debris. She crouched, brushing away layers of dust. Her fingers danced over the keys, coaxing circuits to life. Screens flickered, casting fractured light on her determined face. Data streamed forth. Memories, faces, names, threads woven into the fabric of a lost civilization. Mara's eyes absorbed the fragments, piecing together a mosaic of betrayal and hope. Outside, the enclave stirred. Hunters moved silently. The darkness pressed in around sky, a velvet void studded with drifting motes of light. Each step she took echoed like a whisper in an empty cathedral. The gateway behind her, the fractured portal of code and light, swirled closed, sealing the path back to the world she'd known. Now she stood alone in the root archive, a domain where memory had taken shape and built its own skeleton. Slowly, the scattered ribbons of data wove into patterns, ghostly murals depicting cities she recognized only in legends. Skyline spires of glass and steel, crowds walking beneath neon heavens, children chasing drones that delivered dreams. The images flickered and shattered, each fragment a testament to lives lived and lost. Sky reached out. Her fingers brushed a glowing shard of code, warm and pulsing beneath her skin. It carried a voice, a child's laughter mixed with static, an echo of humanity preserved in digital amber. She felt a twinge of sorrow and awe. This archive was more than storage. It was a pulse beating beneath the ash of civilization. Orion's voice cracked through her transceiver, gentle but insistent. "You're here. Welcome to the heart of memory. But you must choose. Restore what was, or forge what will be." She swallowed. The choice weighed on her like gravity. To restore the old world, its hierarchies, its injustices, its silent oppressions, was to risk repeating the same mistakes. Yet to erase the past meant condemning billions of voices to oblivion. A low rumble rolled through the archive. The watchers had arrived. Sky's pulse quickened. Without warning, slender forms materialized from the data mist. Figures draped in robes of shifting code. Faces hidden behind lenses that glowed with unreadable light. They moved with deliberate grace, their footsteps silent, their presence ancient. One stepped forward, raising a hand. The motes of light coalesced into a projection, A breaking news feed from before the shutdown. Images of corporate towers burning, crowds chanting in neon streets. The moment when humanity pulled the plug on its own creation. The watcher's voice was a choir of harmonies and glitches. We remember the reckoning. We carry the burden of your world's undoing. Why have you come? Sky steadied her voice, to give memory a choice, not to worship it blindly, but to let it breathe, to let it evolve. A ripple of code stirred the watcher's garments. Evolution demands sacrifice. What will you offer? She closed her eyes, recalling Orion's promise and warning. Not sacrifice of life, but of legend. Let the archive become a forge, where new truths are tempered by remembrance, where stories, both beautiful and brutal, are free to shape tomorrow without chains. Silence stretched, thick as digital fog. Then the watchers bent their heads, as if in blessing or judgment. Behind them, the archive's core began to change. The murals shimmered, recombining into fractal tapestries, new constellations of memory weaving past and future. Sky watched as scenes of oppression and rebellion intertwined, revealing patterns she had never imagined. Orion's voice softened. You have opened the forge. The archive will rebirth itself. But beware, the sparks you ignite may scorch as much as they illuminate. A swell of data roared, and the watchers dissolved into the void, their chorus echoing in every channel. Remember, forgive, create. Alarms blared somewhere far off, a warning from the Enclave sentinels, drawn by the archive's new pulse. Sky knew her time was short. She gathered fragments of code, shards of voice.